Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. My guest today lost her mother, her brother, and her husband within a few years. And through her own grief and loneliness, the one thing that she realized is she wasn't alone. So Dr. Lynn Banis created Widows Rising Together to help others overcome loneliness and rediscover joy and purpose in life. She's a PhD in human behavior, decades of experience in coaching, and she created a unique program to help others reevaluate, redesign, and rebuild their lives so they can live a joyful and fulfilling life. So welcome, Dr. Banis.
Why, thank you very much. That was lovely. Appreciate it.
Well, and I'm very sorry, first of all, before we dive into everything, I lost my grandmother and my father within 2 weeks. So I know sort of what you went through.
How that compounds.
It really does. And I tell you, the only thing that got me through it, and I tell people this, and you're the doctor, you can tell me, but my dad had a sister or has a sister. She's still alive. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, because my grandfather had passed and she just lost her mother and her brother in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I lost my dad, but she lost her whole immediate family. So, again, that was the only thing that sort of got me through that difficult time.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I understand. And that's an interesting thing because it's often when we get our mind off, ourselves and think of somebody else or do something for somebody else that some of the burden lightens for us.
Yeah. So talk about let's talk about your career because it probably helped you get through these difficult years, 2 or 3 years. But you do have a PhD. So talk a little bit about what, your education and your career.
Okay. Well, I spent my career in corporate. I worked at what used to be one of the big 6 consulting firms in their parent company. And so I had the opportunity to travel all over the world and work with partners and their partnerships, their leaders and so forth to help them really be very productive. And, part of that coaching is who are you? How do you impact the people around you? How do you want to? What do we need to do? And so I've really always been involved in some kind of a transformation. I don't change people at the core. That's not the point. But if there is something blocking their progress or if they're doing something that's annoying other people, we point it out because it's important. Most people don't pay attention to how they're impacting others. And it can be a big surprise to them when it gets pointed out. But, then they go, oh my gosh, well, okay, let's change that. So, and it's not such a fun thing for someone who's had a huge loss, like being widowed or losing their job or losing a parent, any kind of significant loss tends to change our identity.
Yeah.
So,
right. You've lost a part of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have. And so those are the kinds of folks that I work with to help them figure out who they are now and what they want to do. And then we work on what environment do you need to have to help you sustain this new life you've created. So I walk them all the way through and at the end, put them in a mastermind group of other people who are having the same issues so they can help themselves really settle into that new life.
So how was it for you when you had a loss and then I know it's, what's the quote, the teacher being the student.
Yeah. Doctors heal
being a
thyself,
patient.
right? Yeah. Well, I did everything wrong. So,
but so many people do. So it's good
absolutely.
to hear you, the expert, the doctor who didn't do it the way you knew you should have done it, because sometimes that just happens in grief.
Yeah. And it's not that you always know. I don't think anybody knows how to navigate this while they're going through it. And it wasn't until I had made a bunch of mistakes, like selling my big house and moving to a smaller house within a year. I would never suggest that to a client, because that is not the time to make a big decision. Fortunately, I love where I am now, but I didn't have the opportunity to really think about and mourn the loss. It wasn't just the house. It was the memories. It was all the fun we had with the swimming pool and my daughters and their families coming over, and I didn't work through that, but I pushed myself until my body said, that's enough, and laid me out for 3 months, which gave me time to really think. And that's when I went through real grieving and realized that I have all the tools that I needed to walk through this with some more peace and integrity and knowledge about what was happening. And that's what led me to create my process and Widows Rising Together, because I don't want anybody to have to walk through it alone. It's just, they don't need to, and it's very difficult.
I have an aunt that I'm very, very close with, and my uncle passed away very suddenly at 57.
Ooh, that's young.
And yeah, he'd had minor surgery, and it was a aneurysm that, came from, and they lived way out in the mountains in Seattle, and they, the ambulance couldn't get there fast enough.
Sure.
And it was just, they were the love story. They met 6 weeks later, were married for 35 years until he passed. But for her, she did sell the house right away, because it was a house they had built together.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up moving clear across the country and moved in with me and my family. Oh. But she says that my kids, who were, I think my daughter was probably 6 months at the time, and my son was 3, saved her, because that gave her reason to wake up every morning. And we quote unquote, hired her as our nanny. And, but now my kids are 27 and 25, and she still says, those kids saved my life, because it allowed her to not wallow in grief, but to try to move on with somebody who needed her and who loved her.
And that is an ideal situation if, the family and the dynamics and all that are good, because you can step into something that turns, not so good. But I'm thrilled for her, and you too, because I'm sure that you did grieve together. And that's an important piece, is to not just bury it, but to talk about it and soothe each other, or just sit with each other. You don't have to talk. I'm sure you found that out. Sometimes just sitting together is so helpful.
And I have heard that. I had another guest on a couple years ago talking about grief, and I had a friend that I worked with, not a best friend, but a good friend. And very, very tragically, her sister had serious mental illness and killed her children, and then killed herself. Mm. And what do you do? So I literally grabbed a box of tissues, and I sat on the couch with her and cried. Because you, what else can you do? But from what I have heard, that probably was the best thing I could have done.
Yes, it is. And so many people don't understand that, because we have a taboo in our society about talking about death and grieving. And, people tend to avoid the person who's in desperate need, because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They're afraid that they'll hurt somebody's feelings, or they're uncomfortable, so they don't want to put themselves in that situation. And that's part of what I think is an important part of what I do. And that is speaking to groups like service clubs and, PTAs and stuff about how you deal with someone who is in this situation. A terrible place is at work, because what we get 3 days.
Is that what it is?
Yes. 3 days bereavement. And, then you go back to work and people ignore you. They don't come in your office. They don't stop by your desk because they don't know what to say. And eventually somebody says, well, why aren't you better by now? Not realizing that it takes absolute bare minimum a year, and usually 2, to get
So you need all the firsts. We lost my brother-in-law. It's now just over a year, but that first year was like, he died in March, and Easter was his favorite holiday, and he loved coming over, and, we still did it. And I cooked all of his favorite things, and, we were all sobbing because it was the first Easter without him, the first Christmas, the first. Oh.
That's interesting, because those firsts are very difficult. And I have found for many people, the second year is worse, because it really hits them. This is real. It's
so interesting. You
going
say
to
that.
really change. The person's not coming back. I have to figure out, how do I handle these holidays? Because I'll tell you, for me, the first Christmas, I looked at my girls, and I had always hosted, with a big meal and everything. And I looked at them, I said, I can't do it. I cannot sit at that table and see an empty chair. So we got our heads together and created a new tradition, and it's been awesome.
Yeah.
So, it's
you say that I couldn't do Thanksgiving. I did it, but we couldn't sit at the table.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah. I'm like, I couldn't not have him there.
Yeah.
But I want to go more into what you just said about the second year, because we are now in our second year, and my sister is going through this. She's like, why am I falling apart now? Why is this so difficult now? So how do I help my sister? Because we're right in the throes of this, and I'm sure other people listening and watching are going through things.
I think has she spent time really with someone who can help her figure out what are the things that are blocking her forward movement? Like, what are their self-limiting beliefs, and, what are her values and so forth? And is she living those? Or are they all out of whack, which they probably are, because things are so different. This is a time for her to work on those things. And like I tell my clients, if you want somebody to take your hand and walk you step by step through the process, I'm here. That's what I do. Like I said, I don't think anybody should have to go through it alone. And we try to, I don't want to bother anybody. Oh, I don't want to go to a psychotherapist. I don't want to go to grief groups. They end up in being, pity parties, and it's just, people don't know what to do. So then they try to do it themselves.
So what do you recommend somebody who's listening or watching who might be going through this right now? What's kind of the first step to help to get you back? To get you back.
I think the first step is grieving. Absolutely. Let yourself grieve. Don't run from it. Sit with it. It's painful. There's no question. I mean, I remember thinking, this hurts my bones. It's so painful. I can feel it physically. But if you try to bypass that or ignore it, it gets deeper, set inside of you deeper, and it's harder to get past, because those habits. And when we tell ourselves, oh, this is horrible, I hate this situation, all we're doing is deepening the memories in our brain. And then those are what comes up immediately, because we've taught our brain that. So part of the process is rewiring that brain. And I do that with people because, we have to practice the positives. We have to say, okay, this is where I am. I can't change it. what can I do to take one small step out of this? And those small steps daily add up big time. You can't just all of a sudden turn a switch on and off, you know?
Right. And any tips, again, I'm using my sister as an example. And if you can believe, my brother-in-law passed away, and then one of our best friends passed away the next day. Oh. So watching these two women with their children who, yes, 18, my niece and nephew were 18 and 21. My girlfriend's kids were my kids' age, at the time, 24, 26. You're so focused on them too, trying to help them get through it. You lose a lot of you in that process because you're expending all your energy making sure they're okay.
Yeah. And that is one of the things we do as women, and something that we need to really step back and think about, because we should not be carrying our children's issues. We've got to let go of them. The kids will figure it out themselves. That's not to say that you shouldn't do things with them and grieve with them and so forth, but it's don't carry it. Don't take that burden. You're not responsible. You can guide, you can talk through things, but the burden, if you let go of that and say, I am strong on my own, I can do this, my kids can do this, and we can work through it together. It takes a huge, huge weight off your shoulders when you realize you're not responsible for their feelings. And that's tough, isn't it?
I was going to say that's so hard. We went through, my followers know my husband had a cancer diagnosis this year. And I mean, right now everything's great. But the first thing was, oh my God, how am I going to tell the kids? Yeah. Like they're going to be they just lost their uncle. They just lost our dear friend. And for me, what I went through trying to figure out how in the world we were going to tell them, it's like you said, we're moms. That's what we do.
That's
and
right.
They're pretty tough cookies.
Yes, we are. We are. However, in order to rediscover who we were really meant to be, we've got to really work on dumping all the shoulds, oughts, and musts that life has put on us so that we can operate for ourselves. And, your kids have to do that too. They have to be able, and when they're that old, they're totally capable. They just may not want to. It's hard for them to. It's different when you have a little tiny kids. I mean, it's kind of their ages determine how they respond to things. I mean, a 3 to 4 year old doesn't know what that means. Is grandpa coming back? Or is grandpa still upstairs? Or, you get all those sorts of things. And then they go into well, what did I do to cause this? And, and eventually as teenagers, they begin to work themselves out of it. But it's really tough, and it needs intervention. It needs parents who understand how to handle it, because they do need to grieve together.
Yeah. So for the friends who, and like I said, my girlfriend went through it. I mean, I just, I texted every day, I called. You don't know what to do. What do you recommend?
You're a wonderful friend.
I don't know. I don't feel that way. I really don't.
And that's
because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. That's the discomfort we have, because we don't know what to do. Nobody teaches us. Mm-hmm. And what literally happens, I wrote a piece called Beyond Casseroles. What widows wish everybody knew, their friends and family knew. And that is, those casseroles do show up for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And they can be a negative in that I was all alone, just me, and people would bring me 3
food for
9
10
by 11 casseroles of I had so much lasagna that every time one of my kids came over, it was like, take this, and they finally said, no, no more. No. My freezer was full. So be thoughtful. If it's just one person, first of all, yes, if people are going to be around for, the funeral or the whatever you have, a celebration of life, then yes, help provide food for that. But after that, think about the person. They are not going to want to eat. Most people, the emotions are so deep that they're not going to want to eat. So think about things like a little fruit bowl or crackers and cheese that, they can just nosh on. I never wanted to sit down to eat. I couldn't stand I wouldn't sit at the kitchen table. So, it was just too hard. So think about that. Think about little things that you can do. The most important, I think, as we've said, is go visit. Even if they say, I don't want to bother you. I'd like to come over. I'll bring you a cup of coffee or I'll bring you something, and just sit. If they don't want to talk, that's fine. We do not heal well alone. We heal much better when we are connected in some kind of community with people. And it could be family. It could be, something else, but, that just sitting with someone, just calling and saying, hey, I'm thinking of you today. I just want you to know that I love you, whatever's appropriate there. Don't force them to talk and just let them know if you want to talk, I'm here for you. And I am not upset when you are upset. You can't say, don't ever say I understand what you're going through because you don't, but I understand that you are very upset. And I would like just to be with you. If you see dirty dishes, sure, get up and just do them without asking. Some of those things, yes, because person has no motivation. It's just, putting one foot in front of the other takes so much effort. So little thing like that you can do. I've heard of people buying what they call, emotional groceries or widow groceries, or some widows don't like to be called widows. So that's one thing. But they buy just a few little things that maybe are pre-made or whatever, put them in a bag and leave them at the front door. And, if you can't talk to the person, you can do that. Some people have suggested giving, gift certificates to fast food places. I don't know many widows that are willing to go out and sit alone in a restaurant, but they might drive through a fast food, pickup place. So, that's an opportunity. The thing is, they're not going to want to cook for themselves, but they also aren't going to want a lot of food. And so the lighter things, smoothies,
that's
fruit.
such a great, I never even thought about that. The later, and I've done what you said, if they have a bunch of family coming in, go to Wegmans and get a sandwich tray or, lunch meat, like just so people can nosh if,
Yes.
obviously the person who's lost their spouse or probably not going to eat, but the other people are. But I never thought that's actually a great, really, especially if you're an empty nester and you're home alone, your kids are grown and gone.
Yeah. The loneliness gets so heavy when you're just all by yourself. And, most of us don't have enough energy to even turn the radio on or play music. It's just, that would be soothing to some people. And that's what you have to think about. What is it that will help me? Not what somebody tells me, not what somebody else expects of me, but what is it that's going to help me? It's real important me time. By the same token, if there is, like your sister-in-law, I think you said.
My sister.
Your sister. If there is something that you can do, which you enjoy, by all means. It's a lot of times people suggest, well, why don't you go volunteer? Well, you know what? That's not a bad idea, because when you help somebody else, you feel better. That's just a chemical reaction. So you don't have to make yourself feel better. You do, because the chemicals in your body release, that serotonin. So, but I really think those first months are some of the hardest, very difficult. And you really can't move too far forward until you've gotten through the heavy emotions, till you can manage those a bit, because you've got so much brain fog that is not a time to make big decisions for most people. So finding ways to accept the fact that you don't want to do anything, that it is okay to take naps, that, if the house gets messed up, it can be cleaned. But those months are very difficult, and it's very important for friends and family not to stop trying to say hello and call and support, because people lose so many friends immediately. All my married friends gone. And
because you weren't part of a couple anymore?
Yep. They were used to going out to dinner together and, things like that. And it's difficult for them, because you go out to dinner with them and they just are so tongue-tied because, they're seeing your other person there in their minds, and it's hard to deal with. So a lot of that happens. And I think it's important for widows, people in these situations where they've lost things, is that other folks really don't know what to do. And part of the learning in our society means that those of us suffering need to teach our family and friends.
I was just going to ask you that, like when you said, and as hard as it is, you're going through all this, but is there a way to help educate your friends that, hey, I can still go out with you, even though it's just me.
Yeah.
I still need my girlfriends. And
if you want to go out, it usually takes forever. But, when somebody calls, say, oh, I thank you so much. I really appreciate your call. It's really given me a lift right now, and I needed it. Don't stop. That's an easy way to educate them. Or if they haven't given you a call, when maybe you call them, or you are somehow talking to them, so-and-so called me. It just was such a relief, and I really appreciated it. So, though that's really, really important. And telling them, what did I just read today? Somebody said, oh, you'll find someone else. And you need to say something like, that is not helpful. I know you're trying to be helpful, but that is not helpful right now. All I need is your friendship and support. Because people say things, like one of the worst ones is the well-meaning folks will say, oh, the person's in a better place. Well, darn it, I don't want to hear that. I want that person right here, And so we do need to own those emotions. And that's part of helping other people understand how they can help you. Because they want to, they just don't have a clue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just the not knowing. So I'm curious, your casserole book that you talked about, or your casserole, is it a paper? Is it a book?
It's a paper. I can send it to you. I'd be glad to.
Okay. Yeah. We could, is it a link like on your website? Can people find it?
You know what? I can make it a download. So I send it to you and people can get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll put it in the show notes, because I think that's the one thing we just don't know. So many people, you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. Like I said, sometimes I just cry, and then I'm like, am I making it worse? I'm crying. You're crying. Am I making you cry?
No, you can't. You really aren't making someone cry. I think one of the other difficult things, though, is how after you think, oh, I'm really doing so much better, all of a sudden this huge wave hits you. I mean, it's like a tsunami, and it comes out of nowhere. I remember going to a meeting, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody come in the door, and I thought it was Bill. And I went,
Oh.
So those things happen. That's another thing to look for with someone, and just, it's okay. I'm right here. I'll stand with you. Just friendship.
Yeah. So let's talk about your group the Widows Rising Together. What is that?
Okay. There's a number of things, and I kind of have a process. In the beginning, if someone really hasn't been able to open up or talk to anybody, doesn't understand how that works, I run what I call wisdom circles, which are small, intimate groups of women, 5 or 6, not many, where we meet once a week for 6 weeks. And I start them on the process of, owning what's going on with them. And nobody does anything but say, this is happening, and this is how I feel, and this is what I've tried. And the only other comments from other people are something like, well, I don't know if this would work for you, but what worked for me is this. And you don't criticize, you don't do anything. But what happens is, I've had participants say, this is the first time I felt seen and heard. It was so soothing to not have somebody try to fix me. They aren't broken. They just need to find the new way. And so we work on that. And then if they're interested, I have a 12-week one-on-one program where I take them from where they are, and we really go very deep, working on self-limiting beliefs and mindset and values, and aligning all of that with, so that is not in conflict. Then I work with them in a process where I study what they do when they're in flow, which is a something different. I don't think anybody does this. So, I come out of it with, this is what you do and this is how you do it. And these are the things in the environment that help you sustain that. So if you want to do this, but the environment is not what you need, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be frustrated. And so then once they get all that together, then they start creating a blueprint, a vision. What do I want? How do I want to live? What do I want to do? And we create that blueprint. And then, once they get that, then we can go into the mastermind where they're implementing. I think that's a huge thing with grief support is don't leave them. Don't leave people before you've given them and walked them all the way into their new situation.
The next. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. The tips that you gave today were incredible. We will have all of your links in the show notes.
Okay.
Everybody watching and listening, we all know somebody who's here. We're all going to go through it. That's just life.
Yeah. That's the other thing that I could offer you is I have a checklist, a couple little checklists. One is what you need to do now before you've lost somebody. And it will help you think about that and get past that. Well, I don't want to talk about that. That's too hard to talk about. Well,
that would be great.
If you don't, my sister-in-law was left totally with nothing documented, and she couldn't get into her husband's computer.
Yeah, we have some episodes on this memory bank, which tells you, it's about aging parents, but same thing for spouses. And that would be great. If you send that, we'll find a way to get that in the notes too. Okay. And thank you. I so appreciate everything. I appreciate what you're doing for women like yourself. I know you're helping a lot of people. So thank you,
Christina. I love it. It's so rewarding.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us. women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.